Hey guys, welcome back to We Met at Acme. I'm so excited to be here with Elizabeth Barron. Elizabeth is a psychotherapist who specializes in maternal. Did I say that correctly?
Maternal mental health.
Mm-hmm.
All things motherhood.
I love it. And before we get into it, give us a little education on maternal mental health in general and kind of what we're working with when it comes to disorders, anxiety, all of that.
Yeah, I'm so happy to be here. Thanks for having me. I want to start by saying, like, if we were in an audience, maybe we would ask people, like, who's heard of postpartum depression, and everyone would raise their hand.
Mm-hmm.
But if I then said, who's heard of perinatal mood and anxiety disorders, people would be like, that sounds scary, and I've never heard of that. I mean, have you heard of that?
I've heard of postpartum anxiety.
Okay.
And like postpartum rage.
Yeah.
But I haven't heard it spoken like in a perinatal, right? Which means from pregnancy up to 1 year postpartum. And it's important we like educate your listeners, right? Because I think so often people who struggle with anxiety or OCD or rage or even psychosis in the most severe cases don't think or don't know what's happening with them or that it's normal to struggle. Because if they're not postpartum and aren't depressed, and in depression even, I think for so many is misconstrued. It's like, oh, I hate my baby or I don't like being a mom. Like, no, depression perinatally can look like irritability or not looking forward to the next milestone or indecision or having a hard time in general feeling connected to friends, right? Like it looks different perinatally. So I share this long-winded term, perinatal mood and anxiety disorders, because women don't only struggle postpartum, first of all, like 50% of women begin to struggle in pregnancy. And I think that too is confusing. We think in pregnancy, especially for those who are struggling to conceive, it's like normal to struggle every day. But there's probably illness sort of occurring and beginning to brew for so many women earlier on. The other thing is we can talk more about what these all look like instead of just saying, oh, I have perinatal anxiety or postpartum depression. These things do occur postpartum up to 1 year, but they can also occur forever unless we get good treatment, which is like just where we should start. The fact that I'm here and I specialize in this time period, there are so many fantastic experts that have dedicated our lives to supporting women, families, couples through this time period. There's treatment, and like you can enjoy being a mom so much more by getting help. Yeah,
you know?
That's so true. And I'm such a proponent of therapy and not waiting too late to go and getting ahead of it. And I know that you and I had wanted to record this during May Mental Health Month, but truly it shouldn't take a month to talk about your mental health, especially when it comes to motherhood and all of that. And I know there are so many questions that came in for you. So I'm like, you know what, let's just dive right in. Actually, I usually will ask my guests, I'll start with their favorite romantic gesture. So maybe you can share yours with us and then we'll kind of get into it. Because I know you're not used to talking about yourself.
Yeah.
But just this one.
It's funny. I mean, I think about my clients every time I'm asked a question, right, about myself as a therapist. My husband and I have this thing where I think it's actually a look these days more than it is anything a touch or anything sort of what we would imagine as romantic. I think as a mom and a working mom and someone who feels like a human octopus all the time and has 2 little girls and this private practice, you know, we love being together and doing something romantic and at the same time feeling aligned and sort of seen and understood by him in the room, whether I'm struggling with a kid or an in-law or a friend, feels the most connecting for us right now. And so it's sort of like a look, like I'm here, I see you, I get it. And like, you know, I get you need a moment right now.
Right.
So it's a different answer, I'm sure, right?
No, I love that. A look. I mean, you should be at a level with your significant other where you can totally understand what they're thinking with that look. And sometimes the look is all you can do because there are people around.
That's kind of my point, right? And you know, I think it could also be like a little pinky movement, right? When again, like it's a zoo in our home and there's kind of no space for the 2 of us. But I think just this signal these days to each other, like I'm either not okay or I need to talk to you about something or like we're okay and this is chaos, but we're good, can feel really, really connecting.
Yeah, I love that. Okay, so this whole
submission of questions is honestly kind of like a hodgepodge.
Yeah.
We might be jumping around a little bit, but I think that's good for the listeners who, want to kind of run the gamut of different situations, whether it's pregnant listeners, postpartum listeners, thinking about getting pregnant listeners, and so on and so forth. So I guess we'll start with, maybe I will put this in order a little bit.
Okay.
We'll start with advice for people who are on the fence about having children. And I'm sure you've had couples come to you and they want you to make the decision for them, which is a lot of pressure as a therapist.
Yeah.
But what would you advise a couple if they came to you and they were like, Elizabeth, or Dr. Barron, I don't know what your patients call you.
Yeah.
Elizabeth, we are on the fence and we don't, let's say, have a lot of friends who have kids, so we don't have things to look towards to know if this is right for us. What would you say?
Oh my God, I would just be so happy they're in my office, right? And like asking for support and somebody to help show them what they're processing and dealing with. I think so often couples are on their own couch, sort of back and forth. It's interesting to hear you ask the question in the we are not sure. Typically what I see is one versus the other. So it's a little bit different. In my office, it would be more, help me understand. And did you hear what your partner just said? I think so often I would really want to be thinking about who these people were in their own childhood. I know that might be like, oh, I wasn't expecting you to say that. I think the kind of psychotherapy I really am passionate about is called psychodynamic, which means the ways in which our past have informed who we are today. And so to me, before we even go forward with are we going to do the baby thing? I'm so much more interested first helping them understand who they are, how they were parented, the experiences that inform them from childhood. Maybe there's trauma and that's why somebody doesn't want to have a child. Maybe there was a narcissistic parent. And so the idea of helping, with your baby, everything is about your baby's needs right now. For so many people, that's intolerable to consider. How will I pause my life for another being if somebody above them generationally had a hard time doing that for them, right? So I would just be so curious first to make space for who are you? Who are you together? And then, of course, priorities and perspective and goals, right? Are they someone or a couple or a unit who needs more time before sort of surrendering to this time period? Or are they people who are looking to cultivate more friendships that aren't surrounded by wake windows and bottles and boobs and all the things, right? So, what do you think in terms of that reality that sometimes I think people don't even know why first they are having these feelings about doing something or not? I think there's so much underneath that we always have to explore with people first.
It's so true. And it's even something I'm just thinking about conversations with my friends and it always comes back to something from their childhood.
Of course.
But it's harder, I think, for men to have that realization. Women, we are just, I feel a little bit more self-aware in general, for the most part, always exceptions. But I feel like men do not go to oh, my mom wasn't around.
Not initially. But this process can be, I can't even tell you how profoundly both meaningful and often beautiful.
Yeah.
Not because it's pleasant, but because it's eye-opening. So I would say for listeners, I'm treating women, like I said, across the sort of reproductive lifespan, trying to conceive, struggling to conceive, pregnant, postpartum, and then women that are mothering, families, couples, big kids, right? Because a lot of patients don't leave, they stay and have long-term treatment. And I'm going to say 80% of my patients, we've got their partners into treatment. Eventually, not the first minute that they've come into treatment, because so much of the partner's experience is a part of the system now at home, right? Their triggers, their feelings about their childhood, maybe their feelings about your family, their feelings about their work or career identity. Partners have their own transition into parenthood too, right? And I think we don't talk enough about that impact on the system too.
Yeah, and we're gonna go back to talking about that because there were a lot of questions about men and their experience with potential PPA and PPD. So before we get into that, now that we've decided to go in order, another question that came up was if there is a, when you just can't read your handwriting sometimes.
Of course. Knowing you're maybe doing this like post bedtime.
Yeah. Okay. So this is like for before. So somebody said prepartum. Like, I don't even know if that's an actual term, but being scared of your pregnancy, like that hasn't even happened yet.
Oh yeah.
And losing your body and like how your marriage will change.
Oh yeah.
So this is like before even being pregnant, knowing you want to have kids.
We call this preconception, right? So you know when you and your partner start to think about, so back to that couple, so they've decided, but then one of the people on the couch says, but my body, but my career, but my life, but my time, but my friendships, my energy, right? Everything's going to change. How do we do this? This is so common. The issue, and like, yay for having me, is that we don't talk enough about the reality and the sort of loss that takes place when we also become parents. It is, the most beautiful, beautiful experience of your life to become a mother and a parent, and also dialectically, which I want to teach everyone how to talk about two truths that exist at the same time. It's not but, either or. It's both. It's also really hard to transition into a time period that none of us sort of read a book about how to do it, right? Nobody's there every day to tell you what's the right way to do, which is a very common issue that comes up, resulting in perinatal mood and anxiety disorders. Like, just tell me what's right. Tell me what to do. Why does this feel so messy? Well, of course it's messy. It's all changing. So when I hear someone say, but my body's going to change, but my life's going to change, I'm so scared. It's like, right. And actually normalizing the fear is first and foremost important. If I started to say like, you absolutely have illness, well, that's really scary. And also, I'm not sure. There's a very understandable, normal worry during transition, right? Agree?
Oh, yeah, totally.
And it's like insane that we don't give women enough space to say, often, this is why I love what I do. Like, I'm sometimes the only person they'll admit to in their lives. I'm supposed to be excited. Supposed to. I'm doing like quotations for people who can't say. And I'm terrified. And I'm like, yeah, of course. Right? Like so many other transitions in their lives. Another example of who else is this person. Did you struggle going to college? Did you struggle if you were sent to sleepaway camp? Did you struggle finding a job and feeling like, you didn't know how the rest of your life was going to look? I mean, these are common worries in transition. So we really first need to normalize and then give women space to be like, now what? And who do I need in my little village to get me through this? Who's going to be a supportive friend? I think we're going to talk about friendship, right? Is my partner going to get it? Is my partner going to validate that, he or she understands that it's a weird time for my body and this is what I need him or her to say when I'm trying to get dressed, or to not scream at me, when it's taking a long time.
It's funny that you bring up that last point, because one of the questions that we got was like, this person said her husband is always complimenting her and her postpartum body, but she doesn't believe him. Or even like during pregnancy, I remember my husband would be like, oh my God, like you look so good. And I'm like, yeah, right. Like I'm, waddling over to try to like get on top of you. And I have this huge belly. Like there's just no way that you think that this is sexy. Yeah. But, I feel almost sad for all these guys who are really trying so hard to like hype up their partners, and they're just like,
I'm glad you're saying that though, right? Because they really feel that way. I mean, I don't know about you. I don't have a partner who's going to lie and tell me I look awesome when I don't. I don't know about yours, but he clearly felt you look beautiful, and I'm sure you did. And the fact that you weren't there yet to accept, to tolerate, to believe, maybe your second time around, I promise you're going to feel different, because the attachment to the belly and to the understanding that like I'm creating a human for our family just sometimes hits different the second or third or fourth or whatever it is time around. I also think for someone who struggled often with infertility, we see a lot of more issues around body image, right? Women who are having a harder time accepting, getting comfortable with this time period, enjoying it in pregnancy. I see that all the time too. But that's really funny. My response to this person about their partner is like, well, what do you want to hear?
Right.
And classic, like, you know, dad/partner often can't get it right.
Mm-hmm.
But, you know, again, what would feel good? I mean, now I'm mindful. I have a 4-year-old at home, and each day she gets ready by herself and will ask me, do I look beautiful? And it's sort of like, well, how do you feel? And maybe that's the question from partner to this expecting woman, is like, how do you feel today? You know, is today a good day in your outfit or not really?
Mm-hmm.
And just meeting them where they're at.
It's so funny because, of course, that sounds so sweet in theory. But if my husband was like, how do you feel in your body today? I'd be like, are you fucking kidding me? How do you think I feel?
Yeah. Yep.
Like, I can't even get this on.
Yep.
I'm sweating to death. Nothing fits me.
Yep.
You know, of course, like, yes, they can do no right.
Yep.
Exactly.
It's true. And I'm going to push you one day to sort of be like, thank you. And this isn't my favorite time period. And like that too, that dialectic, this form of treatment, dialectical behavioral therapy, is a kind of therapy that helps us tolerate opposing feelings that exist at the same time. Like, we all should be walking around talking like this because it's how we feel, right? Today is not a great day or a bad day. It's like, well, this morning I had a good morning, and then the subway was late, and this afternoon was awesome, and then my baby didn't sleep. So I had 7,000 emotions today.
Right.
Same with our bodies.
Mm-hmm.
Like, perhaps it was a better morning, and then you didn't go to the bathroom, and now it sucks. So talk like that.
Yeah.
Right?
Exactly. Another thing on this same topic is a lot of people had written in about, you know, what might I not be prepared for as a first-time mom?
Yeah.
I'm expecting, I'm almost delivering. And what are conversations that I need to be having with my partner?
This question.
Like before, the same way that, you know, we had a divorce lawyer on to talk about what conversations we need to talk about before we get married.
So good. Oh my God. Well, of course, I struggle with this question because as a perinatal therapist and then someone myself, I'm thinking about, per usual, the 200 things I wish people were talking about physically, emotionally, logistically. So I don't know where we should start. I mean, we can, of course, because I'm a therapist, speak emotionally for a second. I think that partners don't totally realize, like women often do, birthing women, what's about to change in the mind. And if there was a course, maybe we need to create one together, but really to educate partner on even the hormonal changes and shifts, or the ways in which we do clinically expect women to be tearful at the drop of a hat, like for the first 2 weeks. I mean, 80% of women struggle with baby blues. Like, shouldn't a partner know what baby blues are so that they're not wondering why my wife or partner can't stop crying? I mean, right? Remember that? Even like a sappy, happy commercial and you're just tearful and you don't know why. These are things we know. There's medical research. And I think there's just so much we need to be sharing with partners, especially about what we're expecting. My favorite example of this, too, of what we're missing in our culture is with a pediatrician, right? You bring your baby 2 days postpartum, 4 days postpartum, a week postpartum, 2 weeks, all this attention and focus on their milestones. But mom, I mean, give me a break. 6 weeks postpartum, you can go exercise and have sex. It's a joke. And we've missed out on all these milestones that mom is experiencing and hitting too. So that's like a big passion project. What I would say is talking about how partner dynamic is going to shift shouldn't feel scary. It should just feel, again, I think, really real and understandable.
But how do you talk about something that you don't know anything about?
No, true. But like, how come someone can't be educating you so you don't have to know, right? Like, it just makes me think about any other time in our life when we don't know something, what do? We go and research or find the answer, or somebody writes a book, or we're given.
No, totally.
Right?
But like, let's say I'm in that position. I'm about to have a baby and I'm like, what are these conversations we need to be having? How's our relationship going to change? And I Google, how is my relationship going to change post baby? And it's going to say, you'll never have sex again. You will hate your partner.
True.
You'll yell at each other. Resentments.
True. There's even a book called How to Not Hate Your Husband After Kids, which is hilarious. Jancy Dunn is fantastic. I'm sure you've heard. So again, my wish is like somebody like me could talk to every couple at 39 weeks and be like, here's the tea. And like, here are the 3 things I need you to know. And the first one is, it sounds really silly, but you're familiar with Emily Oster, right? Who's written these fantastic books. I think that one of the things she does really well is help us think about as a society how having babies and raising families is like a business. And so treating it that way, to be like, we need to have family meetings once a week to come together and discuss all the millions of things that are changing. The ways in which we need toilet paper in the house. I don't know what we're eating. I don't know who this kid is. I think there's a tongue tie. Who do we call? And oh my goodness, it's your mother's birthday, so send flowers. How else do we contain both the mental load, the physical shifts, the emotional shifts? I think it's really this idea of a family meeting. She really talks a lot about coming together each week, bringing your list, bringing your experiences, which I also think for new moms helps contain all the things that are bigger than raising a baby, right? Or sort of conflicting with getting in the way of sleep schedules. Even that, like, what's our feeling about sleep and bottles and breast milk and all these other things that are so overwhelming? I think we need a place to contain, right? But to go back, you're cracking me up as I think about, like, if we set a told to partner, I'm going to want to kill you every time you go to the bathroom without asking me because I have to ask you when I can go shower.
Right.
They look at you and be like, that's not going to be us, right? But I just think there has to be so much more willingness to know that it's going to be messy, and that with commitment and understanding, and like, as I think about my 4-year-old, listening ears on, you know, that you'll come back together. It just takes time.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree with that. And now let's get into postpartum because there's so much. I want to talk about friendship. I want to talk about, well, let's start with friendship because there's so much when it comes to relationship. You just had a baby. And let's say half your friends also have babies. And the other half haven't experienced that.
So hard.
Where are you at when it comes to connecting with both friends equally now?
Equally?
I mean, as best you can.
Yeah.
You know?
Because I even think equal is like so unfair. Right?
No, nothing's ever equal. And it's funny because I did a solo episode where I was talking about my experience postpartum.
Yeah.
And I was very vulnerable in it. And I was talking about how, like, I forgot exactly what I said, but basically, you know, how my husband Steven and I are like, he does one morning, then I do one morning, and blah, blah.
Nice.
And a few people were like, she thinks that, like, it's, you know, have to be 50-50. Like, it'll never be 50-50. And I'm, you know, to that, I'm like, I know.
Yeah. Yeah.
But that doesn't mean that you can't try to switch off.
But also, is it that you need it to be 50-50, or is it that it feels really wonderful and supportive that one of you gets to sleep every other day and can anticipate who's getting Zach or Zachary?
Yeah.
And who has a moment to look at their phone before they're feeding. Like, I just think, no, I don't totally agree that, like, you have to do that so that it's 50-50. I just think it sounds like you have a committed partner who wants to be part of the party. So reframe, you know, for a second. I don't know. I just love that. And I had a patient even this morning who the whole session thinking about Father's Day was like, you know, he's a pilot, so he's gone during the week. I mean, the intricacies don't matter, but she couldn't let him sleep in because there were 2 or 3 kids that needed to get ready that morning. And it was a big deal for her to say, I love you, and, right, back to that dialectic, you got to get up. I'll give you another night. So it's never 50-50. I mean, and if anyone on this call is trying to make it 50-50, you're really going to feel resentful, because I think everything is definitely in an 100% bucket, but it's always a shift, right?
And by the way, you're always going to feel resentful about something.
True.
That's a huge part of postpartum that I've learned. And it might be something that there's no reason to be resentful for that thing.
Huge. But again, like, do you have a space to sort of say that out loud instead of letting all this anger fester?
Right.
I mean, my favorite one is every single time a mom comes on postpartum and is like, I cannot tolerate my husband. And I will ask, did you have to ask when you could go to the bathroom? But they have been in the potty for an hour, you know? And every mom laughs and is like, how'd you know that bothers me? It's like, great, because it bothers every single mom. That's why. Right. So anyway,
but going back to friendship.
I think it's connected to this conversation, which is like, sometimes, first of all, if it's okay, because I tend to do this and educate, you've heard of matrescence, right? Matrescence sounds like adolescence, right? Like in an adolescent world, mind, body, We're thinking about pimply teenagers who are struggling, irritable, individuating from their parents. I mean, scary individuals, in my opinion, if I even knew myself right back then, struggling and like finding themselves. I share because listeners need to know that a similar process is happening for moms. It's called matrescence. It's a construct. It's a term that helps underscore this profound shift for moms, psychologically, biologically, emotionally, spiritually. One of the things that change in matrescence, this birth of a mother, right, is not just ourselves, but our relationships to partner, to mom, to mother-in-law, to caregivers, to friends. And I think, again, you're not the same person, and expecting us to be that same person when you've given birth. So that same friend you were to friends before, or the same like sort of level of thoughtfulness or attentiveness, I feel is a misconception, right? Because really, what is better than having somebody ask you, a fellow mom, what time is nap today so we can get together? Different than maybe a friend who doesn't have a kid being like, oh, nap time in the middle of brunch? Shit. So you see.
Triggered.
Right? Resentment, triggered, annoyed, enraged. You don't get it. Instead of maybe getting ahead. So I'm all over the place because the question gets me so going as I think about also how many hundreds of women I've sat with who are struggling with this feeling of, my friends without children don't totally understand what I'm going through. And I want to be there for them too. What's missing here? And like, what do you think? I think it's talking about it. This is different. We have a new normal. I both love you. And can you come over instead from 3 to 7 because 1 to 2 is nap time, and tolerating it? Go ahead.
There's just, I'm loving this advice, but it's similar to like, I wouldn't say similar because it's very different, right? Yeah. And more like your whole life has changed. But when you're married and you're trying to talk to your single friends about like how dating. Yeah. Like dating and their situations, and you are on that very thin line of like fine line of, I don't want to make it seem like I'm speaking down to this person. Yeah. And I deeply love this person and I want to give advice to this person being on the other side, right? And when you are trying to, let's say, work out a plan with a friend who doesn't have a child yet but wants to have a child, it's really hard because you don't want to be like, well, I have a kid so I'm better, so we do my schedule with the naps.
Correct.
And one day you'll understand.
Correct.
That is like the worst kind of way to come across. And I'm okay to say this because it's my sister and I've said this to her face, but she would always be like, you'll understand one day to me before I had kids when I was struggling with my fertility. And I would get so upset because I was like, I didn't articulate it to her because she wouldn't understand because she had never been in my position.
And in her book, she's doing naps and toddler stuff and probably someone screamed at her or shit on her floor just that minute. So it was hard for her to empathize with you, but I couldn't agree more with you. And I share about matrescence because they're developmental differences between you and sister at that point. You have not yet walked in her shoes. She hasn't totally in yours, right? And it's so hard to connect when you're in different developmental processes and time periods, right? Like, why does it feel so good to make a couple of mom friends? We just talked about one that you like will forever feel connected to. You gave birth the same day. Maybe that's the only thing that connects you, but you know in your heart how you feel with those people who just look at you and are like, I get you. Whereas people from your history who have the same expectations of you, but you've changed. It's like a formula that's not gonna connect, right? It's not apples to apples anymore. So while I hear you that like I sound like a therapist saying, here's what to do. And I'm not saying I it's perfect either for me in my own personal life, right? I have so many friends who are still struggling to find their person and all of that kind of stuff. Is what I have found is giving people choices can be really, really helpful to them. Because how unfair to also tell your friend who doesn't have a kid but wants one, this is the wake window you can come to. I mean, how annoying would that be? Or like, bath time is cute. They might be like, I don't care about bath time. And also I want alone time with you. So I think helping a lot of my moms come up with choices. Are you going to feel better to have a play date in the park with your baby in the stroller while they're sleeping? Are you going to feel better after bedtime, going for dinner, post? Do you even have the energy for that, right? I help a lot of people think through like, that might feel better and better for my single friend because now I don't have to talk about what time the nap is.
Right.
I can ask them questions. I mean, how do you feel about that as a shift? So like, looking ahead and being like, here are a couple options for the next 2 weeks. What works for you makes it feel so much less like I'm the mom. You're not. You should work around me, right? That person also has a really, really busy, meaningful schedule to them too. Does that help?
That's very helpful.
Good.
And I feel very lucky that my friends who don't have children, we still are able to connect like over dinner.
Fabulous.
And
which is unique, right? There might be someone being like, what are they talking about going out after dinner? Or they might not have childcare, or, right, there are like real circumstances that make it really hard to connect with people you love postpartum. My other advice is it's not always going to be this hard, right? And to really help people think about how this season or this moment, this week, this month may not be best friendship in the books kind of month, right? Like, I might not have won the award this month because June is mayhem for working mothers. I am totally drowning, right? In all the things, school ending, camp starting, the forums, my patients, everyone needs something. We moved. And so I haven't had as many dinners, right? But I think beginning to get more comfortable articulating this and sharing honestly is helpful and
so helpful.
Honest.
And moving away from friendship into relationships, romantic relationships, so much came in around postpartum. And, I guess we'll start with this, which is at what point postpartum do you focus back on your relationship?
Yeah. Oh my God, but how like unfair, right? That there's a marker, like an OB telling you at 6 weeks, you're ready. People are like, and everyone lies to their partners. Like, what are you talking about?
I'm in a group chat with my like new mom friends, and we were just joking because someone just had their she was about to have her 6th week, and she's like, what can I expect? And I'm like, well, you can expect, going in, 'cause she had a C-section like me. I'm like, going in, they'll look at the scar,
which is gruesome and challenging.
Beyond. I'm like, you'll go in, they'll look at the scar, they'll be like, it looks good. They will ask you if you're gonna like kill yourself or your baby, and then they're gonna tell you you're cleared to have sex and work out, and then you lie to your husband about it when you get home.
Says
and that's it.
Every new mom. The best is when you start having multiple children and the partner knows, like, no, I think you got the green light, and you're, just like you said before, when your husband looked at you and is like, you look awesome when you have the big belly. Similarly, what you said was like, are you joking? And I think we need to be talking about that postpartum, right? There are 6 weeks. What a joke for someone feeling ready to sort of be intimate and to even have that experience that they even want to be touched by someone else. I'm sure on the podcast you've talked about being touched out by babies and sort of how hard that is to connect with anything other than the baby, who also you might be the feeding source. There's so much for us to talk about here. There is absolutely no date. I mean, there are people that have come to me clinically who say, around 3-4 months, the return to work, I'm starting to feel more high functioning. I'm able to manage more. My brain is less foggy. There are some people at 5 months postpartum who return to work, and that's actually the beginning of the decline, to be frank. They feel like the first 0 to 5 months, they have all this support. Everyone's checking in, dropping off food, all this love. But like 5 months to 10 months, when it's forever and like the baby's going nowhere and you're supposed to have the rest figured out, that's actually when women struggle the most. And I think that's when partners expect the most to sort of start going again intimately.
That's so interesting, because I felt that everyone stopped dropping off food and checking in at, 6-7 weeks.
Yeah. Well,
way before 5
course.
months.
Yeah, of course. Right. And it also depends on, again, who's part of your village. And are you the first in your friend group to have a baby? Are you the last? Are you somewhere in the middle? Where are you in sibling order? Right? Or is this the 7th grandchild? Not to minimize, but again, the system matters.
Yeah.
And so, of course, you're not going to share all of this with your partner when they're starting to try and make a move. But I do think, again, talking about the desire and the willingness but the not now, I'm not open for business, and here's why.
Right.
The always here's why matters too.
Yeah.
Which is what we're doing in therapy. People don't know often why they're not interested. And that's another thing we should be talking about, right? For women really struggling with depression, and also just what we say, anhedonia, not looking forward to things, loss of pleasure and joy. These are signs and symptoms of depression, but they can also just be a sign of that matrescence, that normal identity transition that takes time for a woman to be like, I'm feeling more like myself, which I know is another, of course, question that came in. Like, when does that happen? It's like, who's yourself? You're someone new. We have to find that person and get to know her too. You know?
Yeah. Yeah. Like, you are reborn with this baby, and understanding, you know, yourself now is also an experience that probably makes you feel sexual again.
Totally.
Like, when you understand yourself.
Totally. Which, you know, you asked me before, like, people think perinatal. It means in the literature, they say up to 1 year. There are so many women at 18 months and 2 years with kids, 2 years postpartum, coming to my office being like, I haven't felt like myself all this time. I thought it would go away. I thought it was normal. I'm struggling. Is it too late? It's like, once a mom, always a mom, right?
Yeah.
So I hear you.
Something that you mentioned earlier was, you know, when you were describing postpartum depression or postpartum anxiety, one thing that you said was not looking forward to milestones. And literally before we started recording, you asked me if my 5-month-old was eating food yet. And I was like, no, I really don't want him to, which is so interesting because I have not, you know,
done the whole thing.
Very grateful, knock on wood. I have not experienced postpartum depression or anxiety yet. And I feel very grateful for that because I am someone who has been prone to depression in the past. But I do not want him to hit another milestone.
Who wants to start to deal research?
Yeah, but
educated?
But that's what it is, by the way. It's not. So does that mean I'm depressed because I just want to enjoy this moment?
Yeah, no.
Okay.
The not looking forward to things is like, you know, on the most beautiful day when you look outside and you see the sun and it's like, what will today be like? People who are struggling see darkness, right? They see clouds. It's gloomy. They can't even remotely consider how's this day going to go. It's just like, man, another day.
Right.
Does that make sense? So I think the not looking forward to things, though, with baby often is actually more anxiety. Like, oh my gosh, there's a vacation from a year from next Tuesday and I have to figure out what I'm going to need on the plane. I'm sort of like, I hear that you've not done this before. And like, let's come back to today and we can talk about that soon. That can't be taking up as much space.
Right.
Now, if mom can't let it go, right? A mom who doesn't have anxiety is like, that makes sense and comes back and is like, but I need to talk to you about how I'm going to get to the pediatrician and then to my parents' house and then it's the people who are so stuck in the future trying to figure it out. But not starting solid speaks to, again, another thing for you, for mom.
Yeah.
And that's not a surprise at all.
So true, because I know
it's all
that
on
I'm
you,
gonna
baby.
have to start cooking.
Yeah. I'm going to help you. And we have a great book. And if you have a caregiver, someone to help you sort of start to prep, but more examples, right? Where when you've done it, right, it feels like I can share and be like, guess what? This is what you need also for your living room. And don't be scared if he's not into it. And like, life's a journey.
Right.
Versus the way it feels in your mind.
Yeah, it's true. Going back to the sex thing, I'm laughing because in that same group chat that I mentioned, when we were one of my girlfriends, the one who is having her 6-week appointment soon, was like, what are you guys doing for birth control?
Oh, yeah.
And one of our friends was like, sleeping, telling my husband that I'm tired is my birth control right now. And it's so funny because one question that came in was, you know, how to keep the spark alive when you're sleep deprived.
Yep.
And I don't even know if this necessarily means sex. I think just means like
having a conversation in the evening,
liking each other.
Yeah.
Sure. Yeah.
Pretending.
And also not only talking about the baby.
Which is so hard for so many moms, certainly new ones and definitely ones with anxiety, right? Like, again, so mental load, you've heard about mental load, right? This idea that there are millions of invisible tasks taking place all day long. And that was before like the toilet paper. What are we eating? Oh my gosh, I didn't get a plane ticket for next week's work trip. Your kid's starting solids. I didn't order the containers. Wait, we have to pay our caregiver. There's a form due and I have a deliverable for work due, right? So it's like, I always say 200 tabs open and if one closes, life is over, right? That's how significant it feels for us moms managing like octopi, whatever you want to say, right? With like all these arms and legs everywhere. And I think for so many partners, sometimes when mom is as capable as she is or appears to be high functioning and getting all those tabs done, closed, open, whatever you want to say metaphorically, it then looks like we're available to them, sort of either intimately, sexually, emotionally, physically. And often mom feels like she doesn't have a choice. And so again, first of all, how do we bring partner in to help with that mental load? Not 50-50. That's insane, right? It's just never going to be. I mean, in many houses, I have to say, I've seen such progress where partners are the one making pediatrician appointments and that kind of thing. I think that also looking at love languages postpartum is essential. They shift. Somebody might have been more turned on by a partner making them coffee, and now they're like, no, that's just mandatory, right? Mm-hmm. They're not as excited about something like that. I think that really reassessing them and understanding, is it acts of service? Is it more romantic? Is just mandatory for families.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree with that. What about some signs that you need meds for postpartum, either rage or anxiety or depression?
Yeah, such an important question.
I think let's start with rage because it's more common.
It is more common, and often I think people don't totally understand that it's problematic. Like on some level, moms believe like this is just a part of the irritability. And again, we understand that moms feel more resentful than maybe they typically did pre. But to feel angry all the time and at everyone else when really they're just so sad themselves. I think comorbid means existing together. Diagnoses, often rage and depression are the same thing. Rage is coming out as fiery and loud like anxiety does, but depression is usually underneath. Like, this isn't feeling good. My needs aren't being met. So when we're thinking about medication, I'm not a reproductive psychiatrist, but everyone should know that we have them, which are specialists who medicate both in pregnancy and postpartum that are safe for babies. Incredible group of women that are treating perinatal women now, across the world. And if anyone needs help finding one, reach out because they can be life-changing. These are women who need medication. We're looking at onset, duration, and frequency. Like, how common am I exploding at my partner? Is it all the time, right? Frequency. And duration. When did it start? Onset is really when did it start, and frequency, how often. So for somebody who's having like an episode every couple weeks, I might not think medication is what's needed. There could be more structural things happening at home. Their needs aren't being met. They're burnt out. They're exhausted. But for someone where it's feeling like all the time, we're worried that there's illness, and it can get better with treatment, right? You asked me before, like, how do we keep the spark alive when someone's sleep deprived? Nobody is going near their partner when they're struggling with rage, right? Nobody. And so again, looking at maybe medication or therapy as being tools to help combat some of the sadness, the agitation, the shift in dynamic, like, so important.
Yeah. Yeah. My husband has been doing this thing recently. And I will say I definitely had a little bit of rage after,
totally.
Like, in the first 6 weeks, maybe a little longer. And I would say it went away. But it comes back like every so often.
There you go.
Not often enough to go on meds.
That's typical,
but every so often.
That's what we're telling listeners, right? Like, and also circumstantially. Well, tell me the example.
So we share a bathroom now because the other bathroom is right across from Zachary's room. And we're both like too scared to wake him. So we share a bathroom after, 7:30 p.m. And I don't know why he does this. And I wish I could. If someone's husband does this, please DM me so we can be upset together.
Mine's gonna do it. Go ahead.
No, he flushes the toilet with his toe.
Oh, that's insane.
With his toe.
That's insane.
How psychotic is that? Like,
That's
I've
insane.
never in my life.
Why?
First of all, that's something that I do at a public bathroom.
Well, of course.
Because I don't want to touch the thing.
Of course.
you know?
Wearing a sneaker, though. But why
Our
his
home is
naked toe?
Our home is clean. You know that I'm flushing with my hand.
What is his response?
So
what would he say?
Why are you doing that? And he's like, I don't know. Like, he doesn't have a reason for it. He's like, I was just like, it's easier. Like, and I'm like, no,
that's
absolutely
insane.
not.
That's
and he
insane.
did it last night before bed. And I go, if you ever do that again.
Okay, come on. Is this rage or is it funny? But I hear you.
It's rage. I mean, would you be not rageful?
Well,
about
mine
that?
is my husband is super dark, and he has a beautiful head of hair, but his hair is everywhere, and it's in the sink, it's in the shower. And when I say it's enraging to me, I see red. I mean, every day, you know how many times I've said, take a piece of tissue and just clean the sink after you've shaved for the day or whatever else is happening with your hair coming out. I don't want to see black hair in my, so it's enraging to me because also I'm the one picking it up.
Right.
But the toe thing,
no, the toe thing is unexplainable. And I have the hair thing too, by the way. For some reason, I look past that. I think it's because I like that he's so hairy.
Oh, well, that's what I'm saying. He does have a beautiful head of hair. But so what about creepy crawlers? I mean, since we lived together the first time, we've been together a decade. And I'll never forget being like, how do you think your clothes from behind the door are making it to the laundry? I need to know. Do they jump? They're called creepy crawlers in our house. And now we explain it to my girls. Like, they have to take that because I can't raise people who are doing creepy crawlers behind the door.
No.
Why is that? But this is not real rage, my dear. And
yeah.
this is like partner circumstantial rage,
right.
I'm talking feeling like you want to hurt someone, feeling like you want to smother, feeling like you only see red and there's nothing else. You can't laugh about this kind of rage, but even that, I know the difference when you're alone and you feel like, I don't know, what's another example? I have patients who are so enraged by their babies not napping. That's a more understandable rage, right? Like, I had a patient today who was bouncing during therapy. It's a short nap. It was enraging. She just felt like, can I have a minute with my therapist? And partner is working in person, right? Like, all the things. She hasn't eaten. There's no water. There's no toilet paper in the house. That's enraging.
Okay.
But if that's every day,
right,
we need some more support.
So this is interesting because I actually did think I had postpartum rage, but I think I had postpartum partner circumstantial rage.
There you go.
See, like, this is why I need you.
But and I'm here for it. It's postpartum adjustment, right? So again, go back to that 39, 38 week thing when you said to me, what does everyone need to know, Elizabeth? Everyone needs to know that there are prickly moments that are going to take place between partners, bizarre things that are going to trigger you, commercials that are going to make you feel teary, moments you're going to turn him down from having sex, right? I mean, is this more direct? It's like, these are the things that are going to be funky. Moments that, you cancel on his best friend's wedding or rehearsal dinner because the babysitter didn't come or you don't trust. These are very common issues, right? And we need to be like talking like this. It's not forever. Remember, it's a season. And even using the words like right now, in postpartum, in this time period. And then knowing that as your kids get older, new adjustments with partner, right?
Yeah, it's so true. But you have more experience in that new adjustment because you're more of a
And if you're practicing my family meeting, it's always happening, right? Sort of these dialogues around how's it going? P.S. You've been doing this thing this week that's been really bothering me.
Yeah.
Or, I noticed you're trying to be intimate with me. I'm telling you I'm not ready and I feel bad about that. And let's talk about it. Like, that can sort of belong in the meeting without a couples therapist so that it doesn't feel like, Thursday night when you're watching a show, the anxiety of, I have nothing left. Should I fake sleep? Which a lot of my patients talk about and we laugh about, right? Because if I'm touched by anyone else, I swear to God, I'm going to see red. But partners don't understand. They need to be educated.
Yeah. I know we're getting close to time and I have these two questions that I really want to get to. So let's see what we can do here. Someone asked for advice for miscarriage and pregnancy loss. And I know that this is, I mean, this could be a whole episode in itself.
I'll come back, I promise.
Yeah. But I would love that.
Yeah, I would come back.
If you can talk to that for a little bit, that would be great.
Advice for whom, though, you think?
Advice for I think the relationship.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. I was telling you before, I have a patient who just unfortunately found out her third transfer didn't work today. And she called me before her partner because he has the biggest presentation of his life today at 1:00. I asked her if I was allowed to share because I just knew you were going to ask. It speaks to the level of isolation, sadness, all consuming. She's in her office and had a meeting, right? 10 minutes after finding out. It is devastating. I always liken for the partners to be thinking about a woman sitting on a bench in a park all alone. There's millions of kids playing in the park, but the mom, the woman, the person on the bench can't even see. She can't hear them yelling and laughing. She only can hear her experience. And then I always think to myself, I ask a partner, what would it be like to simply walk over to that person, sit on the bench with them, hold their hand, and just say, I'm here. It's that simple, right? He or she can't change it. He or she can't make it happen. He or she honestly can't say much except for I'm here and I'm with you and we're together. I think for so many women struggling with loss, truly the level of alienation in their life, in the park, at bridal showers, at bachelorette, right? Like all these things at work, it's invisible, their struggle. And for partner to see them and really hold them can be so validating and important, right? When I can't be on the bench all the time, I always joke, I'm only on the bench 45 minutes a week. So I need you, partner, on that bench.
The way you just articulated that like made me emotional.
Oh my gosh.
Because it's also
you gave me chills when you said that because
it's also how I felt about fertility struggle.
Yeah.
You know, like
that's the same.
You go to all of these events and you're just, it's so in your face. Yeah. You've never seen more kids in strollers than when you are trying to conceive.
Correct. But like, did a friend ever say to you, is there a restaurant on the weekend you don't want to go walk past? Like I ask my patients this on Fridays. I'm like, you know, don't go past EJ's and Green Kitchen this weekend. It just doesn't feel good. Like, what do you need? Right? And who do you want on your bench this weekend? Remember that present CBT skill. I love that moved you because I just did start, I co-founded a little service called Benchmate for that reason that is helping connect women struggling with infertility. But I'm talking like the very specific likeness, sameness. So someone with low AMH who's either IUI or IVF, or maybe it's someone looking at surrogacy. I wanted to come up with a way to connect such a specific niche because you feel like nobody gets it unless you've walked in those shoes.
Yeah, and I just want to share a little anecdote for anyone going through infertility, which by the way, I fucking hate that it's called infertility. It's just fertility struggles.
Beyond.
Because who knows if you're infertile? Like, you know what I mean? I hate that.
Infertile, what?
It's like infertility is that's what you hear.
I know.
But anyway, I was so angry during it, which is so normal.
Correct.
And I remember I called my OB and I got an answering service, and the answering service said, you know, like, thank you for calling whatever doctors. And if you are pregnant, press 1. And like everyone else, press 2.
I can't.
And I literally wrote her, no, I don't think I wrote it to her. I said it to her on the phone. I was like, doctor, whatever, I need you to know that your answering service is triggering
but
for women who are trying to get pregnant.
Because the systems are all like this.
But
right?
I'm looking back and I'm like, that's batshit crazy of me, right? But it doesn't matter because that's what pissed me off then.
I don't think it's batshit
crazy. And that's
crazy.
exactly though what trying to conceive and struggling with fertility does to you. You just don't know what's going to piss you off.
I know. Well, everything.
And that really pissed me off. I was like, how dare you say, oh, if you're a winner, press 1. And if you're a loser,
my God,
wait for the voicemail.
But you know what? You felt like Mama Bear already to me there. Like, I don't think it's crazy at all. You sound to me protective of also yourself and millions of other women that are going to call in and feel the exact same, 100%.
Yeah. I remember I was like, you need to change that. And she was like, I will talk to the admin.
I love that story.
And then, okay, we'll end on this one. Give us 3, this is so wild and like, a hilarious way to put it, but give us 3 signs you'll end up divorced if, you know, you've had the kids, you're fighting, like, and I mean signs you'll end up divorced versus like signs this is normal. We just have kids.
No, I hear
and
that.
I hate my husband because I just had a baby, not because I want to divorce him.
It's a longevity hate, right? Like it's like looking at them. It's different because, right, like every new mom's looked at their partner and been like, was that the right choice? Like, what would it have been like with somebody else? I'm saying if they've been feeling disappointed, for example. I don't think people just feel that all day long. I think when people feel disappointed, oh my gosh, you didn't prepare me for that one.
Yeah, it's a hard one.
Any of this today. It's a really hard one. Ending up divorced no matter what, like conclusively. I think for a woman who believes in their soul that partner has no willingness to get to know who they are after having kids, number one. So many partners mean so well, but don't have the skills. And like, I feel for them, right? I mean, I'm not saying I haven't been annoyed when it's my own who's like, what are you talking about? And why are you panicking that we don't have a sunshade, right? For the baby, the first time we went to the beach. I'll never forget being like, how did you not bring the sunshade, right? But I think when you know a partner is in it for the long haul, they might say something like, we'll do better next time, right? Or like, we've got this, or this is a crazy time period and I love you. Someone who's not repairing ever scares me. That scares me, right? Because just like we now know that repairing with children is like essential to managing for emotion regulation, I think a partner who doesn't want to check in and be like, we haven't spoken in 4 days or we haven't been intimate in 3 months. Can we talk? So I'm going to say that. I'm going to say someone not game to repair scares me for long term.
Yeah.
What do you think?
I agree with that.
Yeah.
I agree with that. I would also say someone who, and this is like worst case, not worst case scenario, but I had a friend who I distinctly remember she was like, don't have kids. She is, I don't know her that well, but like we were at a party once and she was like, don't have kids.
A lot of people.
And I was like, why? And she was like, because after your husband sees you give birth, like he'll never like want you the same. And I remember thinking like, that is, and her partner were separating.
Of course.
And I was thinking to myself, that would be the craziest thing in the world.
So you couldn't even fathom.
I couldn't even fathom my partner feeling that way. In fact, like I was that woman who, had I done a vaginal birth, I would have been like, please look.
No.
Watch the whole thing. I don't care, you know, because I never thought that that could happen. And I would say if that does happen, then that's a sign that this is not, that you deserve so much better than this person.
That scares me too. That feels alarming. And especially on a personal note, we can talk about another time. My first with my daughter 4 years ago, 4.5, I gave birth alone without my partner during March 2020, during that crazy 5-day lockdown. I'm talking like,
it's wild.
I was dropped off like it was a drive-through to deliver with other complications. It was terrifying.
So
and
scary.
I'm so envious of people who have experiences where their partner gets to experience, what goes on in there, no matter what happens. And just the second time around with my little one, us feeling like it was a luxury to have him see and feel and experience and notice. And also the body stuff, right? Like all of it, he needed to witness. So I just think that was insane. And I'm sad that we're ending on that, but I just feel like...
No, that's wild. And we're not ending on that because we're going to end with a quote or piece of advice.
Okay.
Something that has helped you throughout the years. So I imagine this will be a positive one.
Yeah, of course. I mean, what comes to mind, first of all, is 2 things are true. Motherhood is the most, oh my God, incredible experience, the most empowering experience, the most loving, the most fulfilling, and it's really hard. So find people, if you don't have them, who are listening, who get it, to help empower you so that you can enjoy it more, and also have a moment when it's not feeling so awesome, because that's normal and appropriate and understandable too.
Yeah, I love that. Where can everybody find you, follow you, sign up for the bench?
Great. The Benchmate thing. Yeah. Maybe we can send out a little notice. I'm on Instagram at with Elizabeth B. I just started a platform called withelizabethb.com where there are support groups and webinars and educational conversations and things like that, just to try and help more people. Because again, I only have 45 minutes a week with so many women. So to help more people, couples, families get more support. And I'm so glad to have known you now. And thank you for having me to talk about, there's so much value in getting to talk about all the real stuff. So
this was amazing. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.